Welcome to the Simply Vegan podcast with me, Holly Johnson, and my co-host, Gabriella Clark. Each week we discuss the latest vegan news, taste test new products, and chat to some of the leading names in veganism. This week's episode of the Simply Vegan podcast is brought to you by Alpro My Cuppa, a plant-based alternative formulated specifically for use in tea. Alpro My Cuppa ticks all the boxes when it comes to colour, texture and flavour. That tannin tartness you find when mixing plant-based with tea? Tackled. Worried about getting your brew just the colour you like it? Worry no more, and we promise we won't judge. And the taste? We'll let you be the judge. We know you'll love it. Alpro My Cuppa is available in the chillers at Sainsbury's, Waitrose and Morrison's. Thank you to Alpro and My Cuppa. So welcome to our last podcast episode of Veganuary 2021. Any new listeners, anyone who's trying veganism for the first time, we hope you've really enjoyed listening to the show this month. We hope you've really enjoyed Veganuary and trying new dishes and vegan and plant-based food. We really hope you'll stay with us for the rest of your vegan journey. For more info, don't forget to visit veganfoodandliving.com. So we thought we'd kick off today's episode with some reviews. We've been tasting some very delicious food this month, haven't we?
I have to say, potentially my favourite week for being a podcast host.
Really?
Some delicious treats arrived this week. Very excited to discuss them.
So I'm guessing those delicious treats were in the form of vegan chocolate.
You guessed correctly.
So we each had a box of LoveRaw wafers and sort of butter cups, different flavors, almond, peanut, all kinds of different flavors. What did you think?
I cannot tell you how delighted I was to come home and find this box on my doorstep. I thought some weird magic had played out because I had spent the last couple of weeks seeing so many reviews about the LoveRaw cream-filled wafers on Instagram and different vegan pages, and had been on a bit of a one-woman hunt to find them within the confines of where I'm able to shop at the moment, given the current situation, and hadn't had no such luck. And was just very confused. It was as if the universe had gifted me this box. And I have to say that, I mean, the whole box was delicious, but the LoveRaw wafers surpassed my expectations beyond what I could have imagined. I don't think I could possibly give a better review than, they were just incredible.
So yeah, they are really, really good, aren't they? Everyone's dubbed them the vegan buenos. They're creamy. They just don't taste, and I hate to say this, but they don't taste vegan, and they don't taste of dairy either. They just taste, just amazing.
On the side of the box they were delivered in, I noticed LoveRaw's kind of brand strapline slogan was chocolate first, vegan second, which I loved, and they definitely delivered on that. It wasn't about kind of your plant-based compromise or your alternative that maybe isn't quite as good. It was about making this really delicious chocolate bar that just so happened to be vegan.
Yeah.
It was light, creamy, really chocolatey. I mean, I could have eaten probably at least 5 in one setting, if not more.
Yeah, they're really Moorish. If you go to their website, Gabriella and listeners, you can order big boxes of them, and also find a stockist near you, because I don't think they're widely available, but I think as people catch on to how good they are, then hopefully more people will be stocking them. So
I mean, don't think I've not already done that, Holly. I can confirm that you can buy direct from their website. I think Holland and Barrett also do a big box delivery, and you can get them via the Vegan Kind supermarket. They were 3 that stood out to me because yes, I have considered buying a box of 12.
Oh, fantastic. We can't get a better review than that, can you?
So delicious. And I think it was only last week that I was referencing some good vegan chocolate that I've had, and this really blew it out of the water. And even the other bits that were included, the wafers were definitely a standout product, but the nut butter filled little cups, really delicious snack. There were some chocolate bars, different flavors. There was a salted caramel one, and just a normal milk-ish chocolate. But love the company, love the ethos, love the branding, love the idea that it's really about delivering a delicious chocolate bar first and foremost, and then what an amazing thing that it's also plant-based.
Yeah, brilliant. So the other things that we reviewed this week were the allplants, the allplants range. So I really love the allplants brand. It's all the products come in sustainable packaging. I think I met the guys or saw them talk at one of the vegan festivals, perhaps a couple of years ago, and they're really lovely guys. I think they're brothers. So yeah, really nice brand, and it's basically frozen ready meal delivery, but it's kind of cooked by chefs, so it's not just sort of your mass produced, spag bol or whatever thrown in a box and frozen. It's kind of food that's cooked with care, really good fresh ingredients. Which ones did you try?
So I had the lasagna,
Yeah.
a risotto, and the green goddess bowl, as well as some gyoza dumpling noodles as well. So yeah, real good range of things that I tried actually.
Yeah, I've tried the green goddess bowl. Some really unusual flavors in some of them. That's what I liked. So I think that one includes is it pea and mint mash?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, and some like green falafels and broccoli, and that was really nice. Felt really healthy. And yeah, just really unusual. Like I don't use mint in cooking a lot, so and you wouldn't think to mash peas, would you? So that was like a really nice change, sort of mixed up our meals. Obviously if if you're on your own as well, or you're the only vegan in the household, it's a brilliant option, as we've said before, with the ready meals. It's great to sort of have in the freezer. The other one I tried was I think it was the Moroccan stew. It was like couscous. And it had like dukkha, so it's like the Moroccan spices, which had, I think they've got like hazelnuts or something in, so it gave it a little bit of crunch. That was lovely. Just lovely sort of warming meal. Did you like yours?
I really did actually, and I found that from a vegan, let's say ready meal perspective, I was really pleasantly surprised and impressed with how healthy they were. Often when you're buying, say, like a shop bought vegan lasagna to whack in the oven and heat for dinner, whilst it's vegan, it's definitely not necessarily any better for you. Really high calorie content, saturated fat content, things like that. But the all plants lasagna was really low in calories. I think, and don't quote me on this, that there was only about 300 and something calories in the entire portion.
That's good.
Which, yeah, compared to some of the supermarket own versions, which are 600, 700, 800 calories, was really impressive. And it was still the same portion size, really filling, but packed full of veg.
Yeah.
Huge slices of courgette, and we had an aubergine parmigiana that was really fresh and delicious. So I think even though you're storing them in the freezer and then whacking them in the oven, you're, for me, not compromising on all that goodness, all that freshness.
Yeah.
And then getting a good amount of veg in your meal as well.
Yeah, really like them, and yeah, I love the brand, like I said. So Yeah, they're definitely worth a try, I think. I mean, they're not particularly cheap like a lot of vegan food, but I think they're not kind of expensive for the sake of being expensive. They are a little bit more expensive because it is good quality, ingredients that you're getting.
Definitely. And we had them in the week when, you've got lots of things going on and you don't have time to prepare a proper meal for lunch, and you're, maybe a bit tired of the same sort of things, sandwiches, salads, to be able to pop something like the Green Goddess bowl in the oven or the microwave, get it done, and enjoy it, and knowing it's really healthy. Love them.
Yeah, and you can choose exactly what you get in the box. So there's a nice selection to choose from. So yeah, go and have a look at the All Plants website and give it a try.
Definitely, I'd really recommend. And one other thing I just wanted to say that I was impressed by was the communication from the company after you'd ordered, just in terms of when your order was arriving, what time, how it was, and then the feedback afterwards. So really encouraging you to give your feedback, share some ideas. I believe they have a Facebook page called All Plants Insiders, where they're really keen for you to share recipe ideas or tweaks or feedback. So I liked that it was a real conversation brand as well.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. So, okay, well, let's move on to a little bit of news. So, some research that's been done by plant-based frozen food brand Strong Roots, who I actually love. We buy their, I think they're called spinach bites. Have you ever tried them? You find them in Tesco's, and I think I saw them in the Co-op as well in the frozen section.
No.
So they do different ones, and they're kind of, I don't know how you describe them, little tiny kind of, I suppose a bit like falafels, but they're not, because they're not dry. Yeah, they're just kind of like healthy little bite things that you sort of put in the oven. They do kind of like sweet potato and carrot fries and things like that.
Nice.
But the research they've done has found that 6.5 million people, or 1 in 4 Brits from lower income households, consider themselves to be living in veg poverty. The worst area for this is London. Nearly a quarter of those living in veg poverty have sought advice from a health professional or lost sleep through worry. And a third of parents go without fruit and veg to allow their children to eat them. So, we're in 2021. This is shocking.
Really shocking.
So, yeah, I've actually got back to them, and I'm hoping to get the founders of Strong Roots onto the show, perhaps in the next few weeks. So it'd be great to hear more about their campaign and, what can we do about it? Fruit and veg is cheaper if you buy it frozen. But obviously, yeah, fresh fruit especially is, can be pricey, can't it?
I know. And I think, like you say, it's shocking to be in 2021 and for such staggering figures to come out that show that people don't have the access or the means to be able to fully feed themselves and their families a balanced, nutritious diet. So it's really shocking. And yeah, I was really upset to read this research, actually. And you think, it's such a basic right to be able to have that. And they're, like you say, would be really interested to understand ways in which people can get involved to bridge that gap and make sure that families aren't going without. One of the stats that really stood out to me in the study that I was reading was that the estimated cost to the NHS each year for malnutrition hospital admissions is estimated to be 12.6 billion.
Wow.
Just from hospital admissions due to malnutrition. So, huge
Unbelievable
figure. And it kind of, for me, goes hand in hand with lots of the conversation that's been in the news in recent weeks around the school meals and, the types of food that have been given to families and children, which is just completely, A, not enough food, and B, really lacking nutrition and any real fresh fruit and vegetables. And we've seen lots of that in the last few weeks in the news. So love to be able to get them on the podcast and hear more for sure.
Yeah, I spoke to Juliet Galatly from Viva, and they ran a campaign for, getting better food within schools and vegan options. And also, I think it was 2 episodes ago, I spoke to Dr. Shireen Kassam, who campaigns to, she's founder of Plant-Based Health Professionals. And part of what she does is, trying to raise awareness of things like nutrition within the health service. So yeah, there's lots of changes that need to happen, I think. And I feel like there's a lot of I think there's a lot of momentum behind this now. Everyone's kind of waking up to the fact that nutrition is so important. We all need to be eating more fruit and veg. People on low incomes need to have access to more fruit and veg, and this will have a ripple effect with the health of our society.
Certainly. And I think, reading through the study with things like Brexit, it's becoming more of a concern about the affordability and accessibility of fresh fruit and veg, or fresh or frozen. And I think as well, it gave me a real insight into, those who rely on food banks for food for their families. When I am thinking about popping something in the food bank at the end of my supermarket shop, generally it's something like a packet of pasta or tinned tomatoes, or things that you immediately think are non-perishable, will last for a long time, but not always thinking about that nutritional value. And it's something you so take for granted if you're lucky enough and, well, privileged enough, I suppose, to be able to every week go and buy fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, and cook and feed yourself and your family a nutritious diet.
Yeah.
So lots to think about.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Gabriella. I think, lots to think about there, and hopefully we'll hear from the founders of Strong Roots over the next few weeks. So, yeah, if you're listening, definitely check back soon. Obviously, if you like listening to the Simply Vegan podcast, which we really hope that you do, don't forget to share it with your friends. Head over to Instagram and follow us. You can follow us at Simply Vegan Podcast and Vegan Food and Living. You can also become a member of Vegan Food and Living. For the small price of £9.75 every 3 months, which is 35% off the cover price, you can become a member of Vegan Food and Living, get the gorgeous magazine delivered to your door every month with 75 delicious recipes plus tons of other benefits, such as free access to our digital back issues starting from issue 1, discounts off with our friends at Bloombox Club and Cooks & Co., exclusive videos, and loads more exclusive treats. Just go to shop.veganfoodandliving.com and enter VFL Pod and get your exclusive 35% discount. That's VFL Pod, and join us today. We'd love to have you with us. Next, I'll be speaking to Tim Thorpe from the Vegan Society about transitioning to plant-based agriculture. Hi, Tim. Thank you for joining us today on the Simply Vegan podcast. So you are Campaigns and Policy Officer at the Vegan Society. What does that job involve?
So I'm myself and one other Campaigns and Policy Officer work on campaigns and policy issues for the Vegan Society. So that means public-facing campaigns, encouraging people to try veganism, and also direct lobbying of policymakers and other organizations. So it's about kind of pursuing a vegan policy agenda, making it easier for people to be vegan and to stay vegan.
Okay. So what's your background then?
So I focus on environmental issues for the Vegan Society, and that's my background. So I was always interested in environmental issues growing up. I think since learning about climate change at school, it always fascinated me and worried me as well. And I ended up studying environmental science and doing a master's that looked into some of the social and political aspects of environmental issues as well. So yeah, I then worked in environmental management and conservation for about 5 years, and before joining the Vegan Society's campaigns, policy and research team back in 2019.
Okay.
So I had been vegan for a number of years before I joined the team, and I initially made that decision after gaining an understanding of the environmental impact of animal farming. But along the way, I also came to a realization about animal rights and about the ethical responsibility we have towards animals.
Intensive farming has risen by a quarter since 2011, and over 1 billion animals are killed in slaughterhouses in the UK each year, which is both very shocking statistics, aren't they? What impact is this having on the planet?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's having an enormous impact. But I think before I go on to talk about that, I think I'd also like to note that when we talk about environmental issues and the environmental effects of animal farming, it's often easy, isn't it, to kind of to render the animals invisible. You know, we're talking about really big numbers. You mentioned 1 billion. I think there's actually 1 billion chickens alone killed in the UK after only a few short weeks of life, and 28 million cows, pigs, and sheep killed each year, usually again before reaching adulthood. So I think when we're talking about these animals, as being products to be bought and sold, I just want to kind of note that that's absolutely not how I view them and not how we view them. But having said that, yeah, you're right. It's having an enormous impact on the planet in a whole host of ways. And so to understand this and why the impact is so big for animal farming as opposed to plant-based farming and plant-based diets, the first thing to understand is that most of the energy that farmed animals take in, that's not present in the products that are bought and sold. So that's not present in those animal products. It's not present in the meat or in the milk. So they use this energy themselves, most of it. So there's a huge and unavoidable inefficiency there when compared to eating plants directly, where, instead of feeding animal feed that's grown on arable farmland and getting a fraction of the calories out, eating those plants directly reduces all of the inputs that go into that. So, yeah, and then I think the second thing to understand is, and this is the key to curtailing and reducing the extinction of species, as well as combating climate change, at least the greenhouse gas impact of farming, and that is land use, the amount of land that it takes to produce animal products. So it's not just the direct emissions from farmed animals, which they do produce in the form of methane and in this form of nitrous oxide from the management of wastes and manures, but also this huge missed opportunity of using land in a different way and freeing up enormous areas of land to help us combat climate change and kind of help nature recover. So nearly 80% of all agricultural land globally is used for animal farming and for growing feed to farm animals. While animal products contribute around 18% of global calories. So you can see that there's a huge inefficiency there. So the question is, how could this land be used in other ways to combat climate change? Much of it could be reforested and restored. You could have habitat restoration projects on this land. So yeah, I think that's the basics of why animal farming is less efficient and then inherently more higher impact. The best study that is available, the best research available into this, which was done looking at the environmental impact of different products, help understand what the impact of different diets was. This was conducted by a team from the University of Oxford in 2018, and this concluded that moving from current diets to diets that exclude animal products would reduce food's land use by 76%, reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by half, and reduce its fresh water use by around 20%. It also found that a switch to plant-based diets would significantly reduce pollution of water bodies and the use of pesticides and fertilizers. So, and the reason for that is what I've just explained. It's the kind of inherent inefficiency of trying to get food resources from animals.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the kind of overview. And actually, in terms of the land use issue, a University of Harvard team calculated that reforesting areas that are currently used for grazing animals at the moment and growing food for animals, in the UK this is, would draw down enough carbon out of the atmosphere to offset 16 years of man-made greenhouse gas emissions from our whole economy. So, it's not just about the impact we're having, it's the missed opportunity of using that land differently to tackle climate change.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it, really? I think we all have this view that, in England, Britain, it was always kind of the rolling hills and the little farms, and you have this sort of like idealized view, but actually it wasn't, was it? It did used to be a lot more, a lot more woodland and forest.
Yeah. Certainly, when you go back into deeper history, it would have been heavily forested in part, and probably some natural grassland areas as well, with large, herds of large grazing animals. But yeah, nothing like what it is today. So yeah, I think it's important to understand that. And some of the work we have been doing is around actually looking at the land use, because we often hear from farmers in the UK who say, look, where my farm is, I'm a hill farmer, I graze animals on this land, and actually there's nothing else I can do with it. There's no other productive use for this land. So some of the work we have been doing recently is to see if that's true, and see how we can advise and how we can inform farmers and landowners about different options for managing land that are becoming more and more viable.
Yeah. So is this part of the Grow Green campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. So our Grow Green campaign, that's the campaign that I lead on. And that's looking at this productive side of things. So not looking at demand and the demand for animal products and vegan and friendly products, but looking at actually the producers and what are the incentives driving their decisions, and how can we help them and encourage them to do things in a different way, in a way that's more environmentally sustainable and doesn't depend on the exploitation of animals. So with the Grow Green campaign, we do that by, we've published a series of reports about which cover a range of topics. The importance of plant-based proteins is one, as well as what the options are, the alternatives to grazing for some of these areas that aren't suitable for growing arable crops. Another thing that we do as part of that campaign is events and conferences. So we had a conference in 2019 where we brought together different people within the food system, people from DEFRA, that's the Department for Environment, and farmers and policymakers and a whole host of other people in the food system to kind of talk about this and kind of have a bit of an open forum for discussion. And as well as a host of other events that we've been putting on. So yeah.
So what's the feedback like? I mean, what's the reaction, from farmers?
It's really mixed, and I'm in contact through the Grow Green campaign with a range of different farmers. Some who are animal farmers and who are still animal farmers and are not persuaded yet to move away from that. Some who have who are vegan and have just bought land on ex-animal farms that they want to grow things on. Like there's a project in Scotland where a lady who's bought a sheep croft and is producing hazelnuts on it. And some farmers who are ready for change and are undergoing that process already. So yeah, there's a whole host of different reactions we get. Some farmers who are animal farmers understand the impact that animal farming is having on a large scale, And while they don't agree with us on the ethical dimensions of working with animals, I think more and more of them are realizing that certainly the amounts of animal products that are being produced and the amounts of animals in the system is just not sustainable.
So is there a financial sort of incentive for farmers to switch to plant-based agriculture?
Well, the subsidy system in the UK has changed, is changing, and a new one is due to be introduced over the coming years, and that'll come in slowly. That replaces the common agricultural policy that was a kind of Europe-wide agricultural subsidy system. So the incentives are changing. That system incentivized all types of production. So it would give farmers a payment per acre for growing crops, and that could be for growing animal feed, and also for having land that the animals are grazing on. So both forms of animal farming there, both intensive, which with a high requirement for feed, and more kind of what's called extensive, where you've got where you rely on kind of grazing. They were both subsidised under the old system. Now we're moving in the UK to a system where farmers are paid for the environmental benefits that they provide. We're yet to see exactly how that's going to play out, what caveats there was going to be, what additional funding streams there's going to be. But yeah, there are financial options for farmers. So there's schemes, for example, that will pay landowners and land managers to take carbon out of the atmosphere. So tree planting schemes and things like that, peatland restoration projects. So there are funding streams available for those things now. What we hope that is that in the future, those funding streams will become more generous, and that as support drops away for direct payments just for farming, essentially, just for having land, hopefully the incentives will move in that direction.
Do you think Brexit's going to affect things?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions still about Brexit, and only recently, actually, we've got the Stop Amendment 171 campaign that ProVeg International are running alongside a whole host of other charities, including ourselves, to support that. Where, there's legislation that's in the EU that's asking to restrict further the way plant-based products can market themselves, basically. This is from industry lobbying. So obviously now we've moved out of the EU, legislation like that won't affect us, but there's a different legislative program in the UK. It will also affect things like welfare standards and environmental standards. So we've got this tension whereby there's a lot of appetite for higher environmental and welfare standards in the UK, but we're also potentially opening up new trade agreements with different countries. So there's a question over whether that will undermine our standards here in the UK. But I don't know the answer to those yet.
Yeah. So I guess we just need to keep looking out for, sort of policy changes and, these petitions that come round. It's difficult, isn't it, to sort of, you do feel a bit helpless sometimes. And
yeah, but I mean, we do, we've got a team that pays attention to these things. So, if people want to check out what's happening at the moment, we've got blogs on our website. We've also got a campaign section of our website, and that shows people what kind of current campaigns we're running. There are sometimes opportunities for people to get involved in campaigns, if they don't want to feel helpless. And I also think there's a huge amount of positive news as well. So we have seen interest in vegan issues taking hold, and a much broader acceptance that actually plant-based diets are going to be a more sustainable and ethical route to go down in the future. So we've seen that with the success of Veganuary, haven't we? With they've exceeded 500,000 signups this year, and that's been continued growth from the previous year and the previous year before that. So I think there's more vegans in the UK now than there's ever been. We've got a much more of a voice, and I think there's a wider understanding that some sort of transition needs to take place. also easier to be vegan now than it ever has been. So, if people are listening to this who are not yet vegan, check out our website. We're also partner of the Veganuary campaign, so you can sign up to Veganuary there.
So, going back to factory farming, the concern is that it's kind of the next pandemic waiting to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we've been very careful in talking about the link between animal exploitation and zoonotic diseases. So these diseases that are becoming more frequent now, that are transferring from animal populations to human populations. And that's, I think we absolutely need to understand. It's added to the pressure and the reasons for us now to understand those connections more. You're right in saying that there has been a history of these. This is definitely not the first zoonotic disease to have had an impact in the UK. We had the BSE and BCJD crisis, didn't we? Historically here, we've had swine flu, bird flu, and a number of other zoonotic diseases that have emerged. So yeah, I think while we need to be kind of really careful about attributing blame for these things, and just kind of get a much better understanding of how they arise, both in farmed animal systems and also in situations where free living animals and kind of natural habitats are being encroached upon by other industrial processes. So, like mining and hunting and all sorts of other things that bring people into contact with wildlife populations.
Yeah. And antibiotic resistance, I saw a news article the other day actually saying that that's becoming a bit of an issue.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think public health is definitely on people's minds at the moment, and antibiotic resistance has been one of these things that we've known about for a very long time as an issue, and yeah, that you're right. There's two causes of that. One is obviously overprescription of antibiotics in medical settings, and the other is antibiotic use in animal farming systems. Now, in the UK, we've actually got comparatively lower antibiotic use than in many other countries. It's still an issue, and it's still going to contribute to that antibiotic resistance. But we're part of a global food system, so we also have to think about the impact of countries where large amounts of antibiotics are being used. Some of those countries we could be in trade deals with very soon, like the USA and like other countries. So it's antibiotics is another one of these global issues that connect us all. And you're right, it's kind of a crisis waiting to happen.
Okay. So if you could sort of wave a magic wand and make the world amazing and all these problems go away, what sort of one change would you make right now?
So I think well, if I truly could wave a magic wand, it would obviously just be to end all animal exploitation. But I think thinking about more practical changes, if I could kind of influence some of these decisions high up, I think one thing that I'd identify is a wholesale change to the way that farmers are supported with public money, globally, in the UK and around the world. And I think that's subsidies, so direct subsidies to farmers. It's about funding for marketing campaigns for meat and dairy, and it's also about grant funding and stuff that's available. I think we spend a huge amount of public money on farming and land management and kind of informing how that's going to progress. And I think if we could, with the one change I would say is let's spend that money more wisely and enable and facilitate farmers and land managers to do things differently. So actually, if you just rebalance that so that we weren't subsidizing animal farming so much, and that we were subsidizing and investing in innovations and also traditional land management techniques that were sustainable and that are providing us, nutritionally rich foods that we need.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So you're hopeful for a brighter future?
Oh yeah, I think I am on balance. I think there's a lot of things to be scared about, a lot of things to be worried about at the moment. But I think we've seen, I think, some very rapid changes in the perceptions of veganism and the understanding of these issues in the public. So yeah, provided that continues, I think there is some reasons to be optimistic.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Tim, and we'll hopefully speak to you another time and keep abreast of what you're doing over at the Vegan Society.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me.